Hello, welcome once again to my kitchen here at Trails N62. We're going to be doing some more meal in a jar canning. I've done several of those, be doing several more. And before we get started, first of all I want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel. I don't mention subscribing, I don't pressure that or anything like that, but I do appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate you having you on board. So if I can help you, have any questions or anything, be sure and ask. Alright, today we're going to be doing a hamburger and potato soup. We'll be doing these in pint jars. I do pints because there's just me and that's all I need. So if you want to do quarts, just double the recipe. Alright? Okay, now I just finished doing some more of my stuffed pepper soup. And I did 5 of those, and I'm using my electric Nesco pressure canner. I could probably make enough and do enough to do in a big canner, but then I would have to do all the prep at once. And I tried that one time, and that wasn't much fun. So I'm just doing one batch at a time, so while the other is cooking and cooling down, then I can do the prep for the next batch. So I'll be doing several videos, and this one is hamburger and potato soup. We'll get started. Now we're going to be doing our hamburger potato soup in wide mouth pint jars. And I normally use regular mouth jars, but there's some things that you have to put big chunks in, like when I do my beef stew, it'll be in a wide mouth jar. Some things you have to put big chunks in. The meatloaf I did in a wide mouth jar. Fries I did in a wide mouth jar, but there's a reason for using that, and that's when I use it. The reason I'm using wide mouth jars for this particular soup, well, to be honest with you, because I'm just about out of regular mouth jars. And I'm going to have to order some more. I'm still trying to figure out why in the world there's a shortage of jar lids and nobody has any jars and nobody has any lids. I mean, it's not like these things aren't manufactured through a system where it was a machine that makes these things. They're not handmade. So I don't know why, but I've got these that I ordered online when I ordered my regular mouth. I ordered twice as many regular mouth as I did wide mouth, and all I've got left is wide mouth. I've got about a dozen ball regular mouth left, but we're going to do these in wide mouths because I've got the lids for them. Alright, so the first thing that we do is we peel our potatoes and we cut our potatoes up. We rinse them off good. I'm using red potatoes. So I have my potatoes. I've cut them up, peeled them, diced them up. These are red potatoes. So because I'm doing them in these and I'm only using a little at a time, I prefer the red potatoes for canning. If I'm just doing potatoes, I usually do the russets because they're cheaper. But anyway, these are red potatoes. I diced them up. They're soaking in lemon water here, and I'll rinse them off before I put them in the jars. Real good. Kind of helps get some of the starch out of them. I have my onions over here. I did blanch them. If I'm just using a few onions in a jar, I don't normally blanch them, but since I'm putting about 1/4 cup, I went ahead and blanched them. To blanch onions for canning, you put them in your pot, you cover them with water, you bring them to a boil and boil them for 5 minutes or until they're translucent, and then drain them so they're ready to go here. Hamburger. Now my hamburger, I cooked up a 10-pound loaf, par cooked it and divided it up. I used it to make meatloaf earlier in my stuffed pepper soup, and so this is what I've got here for the hamburger potato soup. And I've got some diced up carrots here. I'm using my previously canned carrots because I don't eat canned carrots. I don't eat carrots for the canned or cooked carrots, but they add a flavor to things, so I do use what I've already canned to add the flavor to them. I've got some diced up celery, and I've got some minced garlic. And then I have my herbs and spices. We'll go through those as we put them in. So we're getting ready to put them in the can. I've got my jars soaking in hot water. My lid water is getting ready to boil. As soon as it boils, I'll shut it off and put my lids in it. And we'll get busy canning here. I also have my hot beef broth here to put in on top of it to cover it up. And I heated it up in the microwave. It's ready to go. And let's get it started. Alright, I'm going to be doing what's called layer canning. Now some things I cook up and then spoon it in to the jars like I did my stuffed pepper soup. But this one I'm doing what's called layer canning, and where I'm going to put it in layers and then put it into the canner. As always, you want to make sure that you have your hot water in your canner. And if you have hot jars, you put hot water. You want hot water in there, so you want your jars to be hot. You don't want to put cold jars into a hot canner. Now I'm going to be adding 2/3 cups of hamburger to each jar. Okay, 2/3 cup of hamburger per jar. And I pre-cooked this par-cooked this hamburger. It's not all the way cooked. It's like 2/3 cooked, something like that. And then I'm going to cover this with some beef broth. I like to do this when I layer it so that I don't put the broth in all at once at the end. It kind of helps with the air pockets. So I'm just going to cover this with some beef broth. And we'll give it a little stir with our debubbling stick, and that kind of helps get the air pockets out of the very bottom of it. So we don't want air pockets in it that hinders the processing. And then next we're going to put in 2/3 cups of potatoes. I get these out of the lemon water and I rinse them off. And again, it's hard to be precise when stuff is cubed like this. But we'll put in roughly 2/3 cups of potatoes. It is, after all, potato and hamburger soup. Alright, and we'll do all of those with 2/3 cups. Give them a little shake to settle them down. And we'll get 2/3 cup put in all of these. Now once I have 2/3 cups of potatoes put in there, and I kind of shake them down, get them a little bit compacted in there a little bit. Alright, then I'm going to take my beef broth, and again, just going to put a little dab in there, just so we get the air pockets out. My debubbler in there again. You can just put it in there and then put the broth in and do the debubbling and add broth as you need it. That's alright too. Now I'm going to take my onions, put in about 1/4 cup of onions. Probably should use my funnel. Then I'm going to put in 1/4 cup. I'll use my funnel this time. Put in 1/4 cup of carrots. Okay, I quit using my funnel. Again, I'm going to take my debubbler and stick it down in there, because I'm just about at the 1-inch mark here. And you want to leave that 1-inch head space. So you don't want that there. Now when you eat this soup, you can always add a little beef broth when you cook it up if it's not soupy enough for you. I like my soup a little soupy, but I don't can it soupy because I can always add the soup later. Alright. Now we need a tablespoon of diced celery. And again, that's kind of just what you get. It's more for flavor than anything. Then next we're going to add a teaspoon of minced garlic. This of course needs to be drained because it's in liquid. It's actually dried garlic that I reconstituted. Then we have a few herbs. I'm going to add a teaspoon of parsley, dried parsley flakes. Don't do a lot of herbs when we're canning because some herbs tend to intensify quite a bit. And then I'm going to do a half a teaspoon of dried basil. Once that's done, we're going to debubble again. Alright. Then we'll put just a dab more of beef broth in some of these, bring it up to the 1 inch mark, right at the bottom of that rim. Then finally we're ready to cap them. And get this hamburger potato soup started. First thing we're going to do though is we got to wipe the rims. I'm going to use vinegar because there is meat in here, so I use vinegar to wipe my rims when there's meat. You want to make sure there's nothing on the rim because anything on the rim will prevent it from sealing. And admittedly, I was a little sloppy with these. Should have been more careful. Now the rims are all wiped. Put our lids on. And we'll put our rings on, finger tight. And you be careful whenever you're handling these. After you get the lids on and everything, you need to make sure you keep them upright. You don't want to spill any liquid over. That's another reason for the 1 inch headspace. So if you tilt it just a little bit, putting it in the canner or something, you won't get any of your liquid or product up underneath your lid. I'm going to pour my rest of my vinegar into my pot because we have hard water, and then the jars will go in the pressure canner. There we go, 5 pints in our Nesco electric pressure canner. We'll close the lid and get her started. Finished up, 5 pints of hamburger potato soup. They're all sealed, they're all looking good, and we'll put them in our pantry and go from there. Okay, so just a little side note, remember that on all these meals in the jars that I'm doing, a lot of them are soups or casserole type things, like the stuffed pepper soup and the hamburger and potato soup that we just did, and even some of the others. If you like more liquid with your soup when you start preparing these, you can always add whatever your base liquid was that you prepared it in the canner. Whatever that base liquid was, you can add some more of that to your soup as you heat it up and make it as much liquid as you like it. I like a little more liquid with my soup. Some people like it less liquid. So these are prepared with the ingredients in mind, and the actual liquid part of it is only so much because it's in a container in a jar. So don't forget, if you want to add more liquid to it, you can always add more liquid based on whatever it was that you put in your liquid that you put into your canning process. That's it for hamburger potato soup. From my house to yours, from my kitchen to your kitchen. God bless.